Today's story revolves around the brutal incident known as the Bundang flight attendant's case, where a taxi driver not only abducted but also committed murder. On March 17, 2005, a woman living in Bundang, South Korea, reported to the police that her daughter hadn't returned home. According to her, her daughter had been out drinking at a club in Bundang the previous day, March 16th, and had called around 1 a.m. to say she was taking a taxi home along with about 10 company employees who were flight attendants. The police decided to first confirm whether she was alive or not and proceeded to track her cell phone's location and check her bank account activity. Since several flight attendants had gone missing after drinking and taking taxis at that time, finding the taxi driver quickly was crucial, but they also started looking for those who had stolen taxis pretending to be taxi drivers. Upon checking her bank account, the police discovered that about 5 hours after her disappearance, around 6:40 a.m., someone withdrew $1,000 using her credit card from an ATM about 15 kilometers away from where she had boarded the taxi. Subsequently, over 20 transactions were made from ATMs, totaling around $7,000. The police immediately suspected robbery as the motive for this case. On the evening of March 17th, around 7 p.m., the culprit was captured on CCTV at the bank's ATM wearing sportswear, appearing to be around 175 centimeters tall. Additionally, the person wore a hat and a white mask. To gather clues about the suspect's whereabouts, the police intentionally did not suspend the missing person's credit card and bank account. Upon identifying the culprit, the police suspected this case to be a robbery-murder and initiated a focused investigation in that direction. On March 21st, 2005, at 10:15 a.m., the victim, Choi, was found not far from where she initially boarded the taxi. She was wearing the same black cardigan she had on when she went missing, but she had only one shoe on. Although the police found the other shoe, they eventually couldn't locate it. The autopsy revealed that she died shortly after being abducted. She had substantial bruising on her thighs and knees, suggesting she was dragged around by the perpetrator. While there were injuries on her neck, there were no distinct marks, and there were no signs of sexual assault. The perpetrator had used the victim's card and even her overdraft account at various ATMs, indicating a monetary motive, according to the police. Although the male captured on CCTV was not very clear, the police issued a public arrest warrant for him, offering a $5,000 reward nationwide. Following this, the police investigated individuals who had previously committed similar crimes and had been released from prison, creating a list of about 1,000 names to verify. Since the locations of the crime scene and the ATM withdrawals were not far apart from each other in Bundang, the police believed the suspect was likely familiar with the area. Therefore, they considered taxi drivers as potential suspects. From the time Choi was last seen alive, her last known contact was with a taxi driver, so investigators began looking for ex-convicts among the taxi drivers in the Bundang area and conducted inquiries among those who had worked for taxi companies on the day of the incident, and they started checking the GPS in each taxi. The detectives checked all the GPS devices in taxis to analyze the missing time frame. They found one taxi where the time and location matched, and they obtained the identity of the taxi driver. The taxi driver had a history of multiple convictions and incarcerations. He was 38-year-old Min Byung-il and was arrested just 12 days after the crime. In the process of apprehending the suspect, the police disguised themselves as taxi passengers to prevent him from fleeing. They took his taxi and asked him to drive to the local police station. Unaware that his passenger was a police officer, the suspect complied and drove them to the station. As soon as the taxi arrived, other police officers who were waiting there immediately arrested him. Initially, he vehemently denied the crime. Therefore, the police immediately conducted a search of his taxi. However, what they couldn't find earlier, one of the victim's shoes, was discovered under the seat of this taxi. The police believed that during the process of Min Byung-il murdering Choi, She struggled, and one of her shoes fell under the seat. With this, the police secured evidence. The police presented the evidence to Min Byung-il, and he had no choice but to confess. Regarding the motive for the crime, he stated that around 1 a.m. on March 16, 2005, Choi, who was intoxicated, vomited suddenly in the taxi. Instead of apologizing to him, she got annoyed and yelled at him. This angered him, but he calmed down, cleaned the car, and continued driving. However, she fell asleep during the ride. Looking at her sleeping, he got angry again and impulsively committed the crime. He saw Choi's bag, took her credit cards, woke her up, and threatened her to reveal the card's PIN. She reluctantly complied, and then he choked her as he felt he would be caught soon due to her seeing his face. After disposing of her body, he withdrew $7,000 from her credit card at a nearby bank. When asked where he spent the $7,000, he admitted to using some to pay debts and the rest for himself. The police knew that he had not planned the crime but committed it impulsively out of fear of receiving a life sentence if he admitted to premeditation. Min Byung-il had committed crimes even before murdering Choi. He had broken into a house in Seongnam City, threatened a sleeping woman in her 30s with a weapon, covered her with a blanket, and demanded money, but he only got about $30. However, he also sexually assaulted the woman. In November 2005, he stood trial in a provincial court for Choi's murder. The judge noted that despite committing a heinous and bold crime, he showed no remorse for his actions. The judge considered his act, especially as a taxi driver, as a significant societal threat and sentenced him to life imprisonment. However, just before boarding the prison bus after the trial, he assaulted a prison guard, handcuffed him, and successfully escaped using an emergency exit. The guard who lost him later reported to the police out of fear of repercussions. A nationwide emergency arrest warrant was issued, and over 1,400 police officers began searching for him. After escaping, Min Byung-il broke into a home, stole clothes and sneakers, then stole a saw from a store. Using the saw, he cut the handcuffs for nearly 4 hours and fled elsewhere. He then called a friend from a payphone asking for money. Although his friend urged him to surrender, he refused. The friend reported him to the police, and Min Byung-il was caught just 10 hours after his escape. After his capture, a retrial was held in the High Court, and the court confirmed a life sentence not only for his crimes, but also for his escape. Following the incident, Choi's family filed a lawsuit against the taxi company that employed the taxi driver, and the transportation company paid a settlement of $300,000. Currently, in South Korea, individuals with a criminal record cannot obtain a taxi driver's license according to the law.